church, sitting down in the woods. And in this church, they had a choir up, and they could sing real well. And there was an old deacon there, and they'd gone to that church for a mighty long time. And every Sunday morning, he would always beg that choir director to listen. Would you let me sing a song? He said, I got a song that I want to sing. But you know what that choir director told me? He said, oh man, you too old to sing in this choir. He said, you got a trembling in your voice. Yeah. Heard the old man say, and y'all might not believe it, but when you get old folks do you like that. When you get old, people are just push you on the side. But they went to church that next Sunday morning, and they noticed that the old man was sitting in the corner. And went on back to church.
I'm not hearing no music. Let me see. Hold on a minute. Let me see what's going on.
And they noticed that the old man still was sitting in the corner. They get worried now. And they went on back that day. Sunday morning. And they noticed that the old man still was sitting in the corner. Somebody began to ask questions about it.
You say what now?
Did anybody see the old man?
I can hear the music through the phone.
Did anybody learn from the old man? Finally, a voice just came down from heaven way. I believe I'm gonna let Dad tell you what the voice said. Let me say, you know what I mean. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. You know what? By the time they recognized the voice, and everybody began to look up to whatever means. And that old man's voice began to talk to him. He said, children, one thing about this choir that I sing with now is that we don't have to wait until Sunday morning to sing. We get together and we sing songs that you never heard in your life. And if y'all don't mind, if y'all don't mind, if y'all don't mind, gonna let Daddy tell you what he's saying. One more time, Daddy. Let me say, you know what I hallelujah. Won't it be good? When we get there, what I like about it, there'll be no more senior choir, no more young adult choir, no more inspirational choir. But I'm talking about when we get there, everybody's gonna get together. No more jealousy, no more hatred, I like about it. You know how sometimes your body gets tired? You see, there'll be no more Mondays and Tuesdays and Wednesdays and Thursdays and Fridays and Saturdays. But I better let this alone. This thing getting good to me. Let me ask you something. Should I let daddy sing? Should I let daddy sing? If it's all right, I let it sing. Let me hear you say yeah. Daddy. You know, I've been waiting a long time for this. You know, I tell you, I've been waiting a long time. I've been singing with Daddy 17 years. We've had a lot of ups and downs. But I want y'all to know it makes me feel good to be able to stand here tonight. Y'all excuse me for a minute. It makes me feel good tonight to be able to stand here and put my arms around my daddy. I love my daddy, y'all. Somebody got a good daddy like me. Somebody got a But somebody here ain't got no daddy. But those of you that don't have a daddy, let me ask you something. I don't want you to say it because I'm asking you, but if it's fit the way you feel, let me ask you something. Won't God be a father for you? Won't God be a father for you? One of these days, when this old war is over, we're going to take off these old shoes we got on, put on a pair of golden slippers, take off these old suits we got on, put on a long hat. I'm going to let my daddy tell you what we're going to do when we get there. Sing it, sing it.
All righty then. Let's get it started. Boy, I'm so scared of this. Yeah, so we got to put some echoes on. Everybody can unmute their mic. Somebody's going off, ain't they? Who is that? All right, thank you. Who was that? All right, how's everybody doing?
I'm doing well.
All right, we're doing good.
All right.
Man,
let me tell you something. I am. Okay, somebody. I know I get up to 10 people on here, and I don't like echoing. Do I sound like I'm echoing to you all?
Nah, you sound good.
Okay, good. All right. Well, I can deal with it then. Let's see. Echo cancellation on. Now, can y'all hear me good?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Dr. Dandridge. Can't unmute your mic. Yes, because they chose to mute themselves. Come on, take your mute mic off. Take your mute off. All right. Dr. Boyd.
Yes, sir.
All right. And Reverend Miller.
Yes, sir.
All right, good to have everybody, man. Listen, y'all are a dynamic, quadruple, I was gonna say duo, and I'm glad to have all of y'all. I don't know what's going on with Dr. Daniel. Dr. Boyd is a regular, one of my best of friends, and he's on here with us. I thank God for him taking time out of his schedule. And then we have Dr. the Reverend T.J. Dedman. Man, it's good to see you. It's really good to see you, brother. Thank you for taking time, because I know y'all busy.
It's all good.
And then Reverend Miller. Man, you know what's funny? Reverend Miller and TJ, man, listen, both of y'all, I just recently connected back with y'all. I know Reverend Miller several years ago when I was preaching at Clark Street, and then something happened. Either he called me or I called him, and we started been talking ever since. And then just, I think last week, I was thinking, actually I've been thinking about you a lot, and I said, man, I have got to get Reverend Dedman over here, because he brings great conversation to the discussion. And then Dr. Daniel, can you hear me now? Doc, can you hear me? He can't hear me. Something's going on with his speaker. Reverend Miller, you might have transferred that to him. Okay.
I'm hearing you by the phone.
Okay, we can hear you. All right, let's do this. I'm trying to get a good picture up here, not just me. All right. So listen, fellas, I've been praying. Of course, all of y'all here recently, except for Dr. Daniel, he's a busy man, and I haven't really talked to him but since this COVID thing. But we have a lot going on in the world. The way I see it, man, it's already hard enough with justice issues, seeing black men get killed. Really, the punishment don't fit the crime, even if they had some type of petty charge going on. No type of weapon or anything. That's one thing. And that's been going on for ever since black folks have been over here in America. But especially for us in these last, I guess that we can really know that it's happening back to back to back, being caught by video camera for the last 10, 15 years. So it bothers me. I think that even though we've had a change in president, in my belief, that this is just what I believe. Democrat or Republican, there's always still been a justice issue. I want to read Daniel chapter 6, just a few of the verses, and I want us to talk about that. And y'all take the time. We usually go an hour, but people don't leave when the conversation is really relevant and when the Lord is in the midst. So I want everybody to get a chance to say, I'll go in order. We'll go from Dr. Dandridge. Well, I don't know how it's going to go. Let's just see what the Lord going to say. Daniel chapter 6. I hate that. Somebody is echoing. Is that Dr. Boyd? Let's see. Take it. Dr. Boyd, unmute yourself. Okay. All right. I bet I sound regular. No, still the same. Okay, what is going on? Is that you? No, still the same. That's crazy. All right. TJ. That's who it was. Okay. TJ. Yep. That's your mic. Give me a little feedback. I don't know why though. Did I do something?
We're not even on no more.
Oh yeah, we on.
You call up. You ain't even on the phone.
Oh, okay. No, he can't hear me. There we go. I bet that's it right there. I turned off your echo cancellation, Devin, so that's what happened.
System not letting me have.
All right. Speaker. I'm going to mute him until he can get it together. All right. Daniel chapter 6. I just want to read just a couple of verses. All of y'all are familiar with this story. I'm going to read it from the New Revised Standard Version, Daniel chapter 6. And it reads just like this. Verse 1. It pleased Darius to set over the kingdom 120 satraps stationed throughout the whole kingdom, and over them 3 presidents, including Daniel. To these, the satraps gave account so that the king might suffer no loss. Soon, Daniel distinguished himself above all the other presidents and satraps because an excellent spirit was in him, and the king planned to appoint him over the whole kingdom. I just wanted to read that part. I'm going to skip down here to verse 6. It says, no, let me just keep on reading. Verse 4. So the presidents and the satraps tried to find grounds for complaint against Daniel in connection with the kingdom, but they could find no grounds for complaint or any corruption because he was faithful. No negligence or corruption could be found in him. The men said, we should not find any ground for complaint against this Daniel unless we find it in connection with the law of his God. So the presidents and the satraps conspired. Y'all hear what I said? Conspired and came to the king and said to him, O King Darius, live forever. All the presidents of the kingdom, the prefects and the satraps, the counselors and the governors are agreed that the king should establish an ordinance and enforce a decree that whoever prays to anyone, divine or human, for 30 days except to you, O king, shall be thrown into the den of lions. Now, O king, establish this and sign the document so that it cannot be changed, according to the law of Moses and the Persians, which cannot be revoked. Therefore, King Darius signed it, and King Darius signed the document. Here it is right here. Although Daniel knew that the document had been signed, he continued to go to his house. And I'll stop right there because I got mixed up. I should have started on down. But what happens here is Daniel is a real faithful prayer. It don't matter what's going on. He's going to pray 3 times a day. He is a devoted and faithful servant to the Lord. He is so devoted and what I get out of this and what I have taught, he's so devoted that he would be willing to put his very life up rather than to miss prayer. So Daniel, in my belief, is put in a situation that's really not his fault because he's doing what he's supposed to do by the Lord, but he's breaking a new law that the king just signed in. The narrative of the book of Daniel, really, in every story, Daniel gets delivered and promoted in this life. Not the afterlife, but in this life because he's so faithful. Regardless of what injustice comes, regardless of his life being thrown into the lion's den, because he's so faithful, he always gets promoted. God takes care of him. And that's what, I've been thinking that I did a piece not too long ago on preachers dodging the talk of justice. Here's the subject. More pastors either avoid the topic of racism in sermons or receive criticism for what they do say. So how does that work for us as preachers? Do we say it? Are we a Daniel, or do we just not say it? Now, many people have a difference of opinion when people start getting killed, like Dr. King, the Kennedys, Medgar Evers, and a lot of folks won't stand. But will you stand? Will you accept the challenge? Because it's a personal injustice to be thrown in jail or to be thrown in a lion's den for doing what's right. So Dr. Dandridge, can you hear me? He can't hear me. All right, Rev Miller, let's start with you. Is Daniel in the lion's den? He's gonna say it. He's gonna do whatever he's supposed to do. He had a ritual where he prayed 3 times a day. Even Darius, who loved Daniel, they tricked him and got him to sign a decree. He couldn't go back on it. So, what do we do? Where's our stance when it comes to biblical topics? And then whether we do or don't do, or should we say it or do we not say it? Or is it a time for that? Or is the book not about any type of justice? Did that make sense? Rev Miller?
No. Okay, say that again. I was getting a lot of static from you. Repeat your question.
On the Daniel, he was when looking at Daniel's life, what position do you take? Is there a cause to obey God? And if he do this or go say this, no matter if it's going to put us in danger, somebody's got to do it. People tend to, where's the church at? I mean, are we doing a biblical type ministry? Daniel was. He was facing the lion's den, and he still prayed. They set him up. And he didn't deny it. He was caught red-handed. But does he stop praying? Would you stop doing what the Lord asked you to do?
Well, we're not supposed to. If you go over to Acts, that 5th chapter, verse 29, Peter says, and the other apostles answered and said, we ought to obey God rather than men.
That's right.
And so,
that's right.
And so, yes, what we're supposed to do is preach the word, in season and out of season. I realize everything else have a season. I know Ecclesiastes says a season to live, season to die, season to plant. But he tells us over there in Timothy, the word is good in all seasons. Even when the people want to hear it or they don't want to hear it. Even when we get to the point sometime where we don't want to preach it because we're trying to keep the peace, we still supposed to preach the word of God.
That's right. TJ, what happens though when we stand in persecution? We know that somebody had just got unjustly done in our neighborhood. Do we stay in the house or do we go do something? Are we scared of the pressure that comes with it? I mean, or do we do like Daniel in this situation? He's in an unjust situation because he's facing what is called individual justice. This is a form from verse 1, 2, and 3 of individual injustice. Where do you stand on that?
To answer your question, I want to start with, I believe that we have to change the narrative. We have to educate those that are in the body of the church.
Okay.
For a long time, we have ministers, preachers, for some reason, we have kind of pitted biblical justice against social justice. I think the conversation and the narrative should be, or could be, social justice being birthed out of biblical justice.
I agree.
I think if we can tie the biblical core of social justice back to biblical justice, I think you can start to begin to see congregations kind of take hold and lift up the cross. Because a lot of times we kind of, it's like you can like Michael Jackson and you can like Prince. It don't have to be either or. Just if I can just dummy it up a little bit.
Right. I guess
you can like biblical justice and social justice. You can live by biblical justice and social justice. We just gotta find a way to unite those two.
Absolutely, man. I agree wholeheartedly because really, I never will forget. I never had heard it like this, but I had kind of knew it. Jesus' first public sermon was to set the captives free. That's what he for. So how can I wonder sometimes, and you know, I know a lot of preachers, and everybody. Here's what I think: everybody's called to do a different thing. Dr. Daniel, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
All right, we good now. Everybody's called to do a different thing, and I know every text is not a social justice text, but when we have things going on in the world back to back to back to back, I don't see how we can't see that God is a God of justice. And I like how you put that. So, did you say social justice should be born out of political justice?
I, I,
Change the, huh?
I said I think the conversation we guided towards how social justice was birthed out of biblical justice.
Mm-hmm. I like that. And can you say Dr. Boyd, let me hear you.
Yes. Thank you. And I appreciate everyone's perspective thus far. Allow me to say, looking at this Daniel 6 passage, we cannot overlook the fact that only Daniel, the law was made for Daniel and not everyone else. And so every now and again, we got to be realistic with ourselves and understand sometimes we just have to be Daniel because everyone won't be doing it. The decree was made because Daniel prayed 3 times a day to his God. He was not the only one who served his God, but he was the only one praying to him 3 times in the text. So we have to understand everybody won't be Daniel. In a perfect world, we all will be, but what set Daniel apart from everyone else was his faithfulness and his dedication to the Lord. And just maybe, we got to understand with all the movements that we ever had in life, from the movement of trying to abolish slavery, from the civil rights movement, segregation, Jim Crowism, even Black Lives Matter up to current day. Everybody will not be a part of the movement. Only the Daniels will.
Right. I like that, man. You had a good point there. But so only the Daniels will. Who are the Daniels? How do we know who the Daniels are? If I can just ask you that question, Dr. Boyd, are you a Daniel? All right. I don't know what happened, Dr. Boyd. Dr. Daniels, your comments.
Amen. We give God the glory and the praise. Indeed, we are Daniels when we consider all that we have gone through. Just put yourself in the place of Reconstruction, replaced by Jim Crow, even as Dr. Boyd said, voting restrictions, segregation is passed. Talk about home ownership and all of the things that are in place right now, and the ability to be the voice for the voiceless and the oppressed, and standing up where there are protests that are taking place, even in the Black Lives Matter movement, even with William Barber in the Poor People's Campaign. Oppression, even as it said, is born out of the biblical passages, the passages out of so many, be it the Psalms, the 9th Psalm and the 10th Psalm, even out of the passage of Hosea and Amos 5, as we know, verses 18 through 24. Then we come to the 106th Psalm, even Daniel 9, as well as Daniel 6. And you talk about being the Daniels. The Daniels are the young people, X, Y, and Z, the millennials that desire a better life, that desires fair treatment, and to bring justice to the social injustices that have been against all people, Black, Indigenous, people of color, all BIPOC people. Don't care who you are, young or seasoned, male or female, where a man can't and a woman can't sleep in their own home, and you're shot because you're trying to make a living peddling cigarettes, ain't bothering nobody, but shot.
Right.
It doesn't matter what color, doesn't matter what you're wearing, a hoodie and some, just drinking your soda, and you live in that neighborhood in which you're about doing and minding your own business, and you have these what they call them Skittles. In the case of Trayvon Martin, George Floyd, and trying to settle everybody with $27 million, be it a Breonna Taylor or be it a George Floyd. In terms of social justice issues in terms of social justice praying, when we talk about, all the way from education, it's hard. It's always been hard, been treated wrong. We've been given the wrong books, but we still made something out of it because we have a God on our side.
I like what you said, Dr. Daniel. Hey, Reverend Miller, I'm not going to tell your age, but I got a question. When it comes to social justice, biblical justice, from the time Dr. King died on up he died in 69, the 70s and the 80s, and even the 90s, and even now, what happened to the church to where it doesn't seem to have a strong social stance? Or we just keep seeing people getting killed and getting done wrong, black males and females, mostly males, but it's like we it's like you get beat down so long, you just get used to it. This is the way it is. We were talking about Goliath and David, and they had heard that 80 times because the Bible says he came 40 days, twice a day. He challenged them, and nobody did anything. Why? What happened after Dr. King got killed? It seemed to me, I landed late in the 70s. By the time I was conscious enough and old enough to know what was going on, I don't remember going out in the streets in this town that I live in. I don't remember us doing any Jesus type ministry. I don't remember. I see Jehovah's Witnesses doing. That's one thing I can say about them. At least they get out there. But Dr. Daniels, I know you Methodists, but Baptist folks are not been to go out there and knock door to door. We good to go to church on Sunday. So what happened to the church? That to where it's almost like it's funny. Me and Dr. Boyd sent me this thing about without saying it. There's some rules and regulations. There's some stuff you cannot do if you accept this. So did America silence us? I mean, they dismantled that King family. Martin Luther King III is the last king boy, I'm saying, and I think that he has a granddaughter. That they did like the mob. They cut that line off because they didn't want no more of Dr. King. What happened to the church? Or is the church okay? Rev Miller?
Well, actually, during that movement, when God was using Martin Luther King, because I think more things was done and more things got accomplished because it came out of the church at that time. But what happens, what we do a lot of times is we don't look at God, we look at people. And so we felt that King was the leader, and when King died, the movement died. Instead of staying focused on Almighty God. And, that's happened throughout the Bible. You put yourself, you begin to put your hope in everything but Christ Jesus. Right. I kind of feel like the church went up to the mountaintop like Jesus did, and Satan began to offer us all these things of the world. And so because he offered us these things, we went and got them. Why? Because they opened up the educational system. We used to call it the CETA program. Everybody can go to college. And so a lot of people went to college. A lot of people got good jobs. A lot of people, life moved up. And instead of giving God the praise, giving God the glory for doing those things for us, we begin to holler about what we've done. My education got me this. This got me that. And so we broke away from God. And even when we go through the book of Judges, God's people, every time God gives us prosperity, we run off and go and do something else with it.
Absolutely.
And so, the only way for him to bring us back is we got to go through something. Look at us now. Right now, they're getting ready to take the voting rights back. They're passing laws over 43 states to go back and take that away in which you felt like you had accomplished.
Yeah, I often say why they passing laws while we sleep. TJ, man, what do you think about the church where we're at now, as far as making any leadway? I heard Ice Cube say, now is the time. If we're going to do something, he was pretty much saying, and I'm paraphrasing, the ball is in our corner. If we don't do it now. But when I was getting called last year to a lot of events involving this General Lee statue that's up in Murray where I pastor, and it's hovering over. Well, it's not hovering over, but it's facing the predominantly black neighborhood. And it got serious. Those guys up there was with they had their guns and everything. And every time that I went up there, and I don't say this in front of everybody, but there were hardly any color folks out there. And I wondered, what about your children? I mean, if I'm no good at all, can I at least stand up and try to make, like Michael Jackson said, heal the world, make this a better place for you and for me and the entire human race? But they are determined to push their agenda. Where are we at? And I heard you, Dr. Boyd. Daniels. Where are the Daniels at?
Let me say this.
Go ahead, TJ.
That's where is the church? Well, I can definitely say that there are definitely some young voices,
straight up,
some young people who are speaking, who are out doing, we call it activism outside of the church. Inside the church, I think we call it ministry. But we have some young people who are definitely outside them church walls who are, man, they are kicking us some dirt. I think the problem is that when they walk into the church, in some churches, I'm just gonna talk about some churches, I don't know about all churches, but when they go back inside those walls of the church, their light is somewhat dimmed a little bit because of fears, because of ignorance, and sometimes, you know, getting that tax write-off it helps a lot of churches out. So their voices are kind of like on the leash. So
right.
And again, I'm not saying that's all churches. Just some of the churches that I know about. The young people, man, they have to be silent when they walk in their church, man, because they haven't lived long enough. They haven't been through what some of the older saints or some of the veteran saints done been through, and at the same time, some of the veteran saints' voices have also been oppressed, because it's sort of like for them, they kind of feel like they've been seen and not heard. So we got to find balance. There's an Egyptian word called ma'at. And one of the means of ma'at is balance and right path. So we got to find a way to find that balance back into the church. So when our young people do walk out into the world, they constantly have these fires lit wherever they with. And real quick, because you talked about Dan, you asked the question, where are the Daniels at?
Where are the Daniels at?
We also got to know that there was a Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And also, sometimes when you're living in empire will force you to be a martyr. Emmett Till didn't ask to be the symbol for civil rights. Trayvon Martin didn't ask to be the symbol for Black Lives Matter. So sometimes when you living in empire and you living in oppression, you will be forced into martyrdom, whether you like it or not, whether you speak about it or you don't. So you might as well say something.
In other words, and correct me if I'm wrong, man, somebody got to die. Some blood has to be shed in order for any change. And see, people don't want to say that, but in order for any change, there's always bloodshed. There is no salvation if there's no remission of sins. And Jesus, he was a perfect example. And I hate that, man. But in every situation where we took a stance, a step up, somebody had to die. And these young people, I agree. We was called to Murray State, man, to do this couples things. And they had a theater. They turned that theater. It was a church when I walked in there. And you talking about genuine. Nobody looked around to see who was coming in. And them cats were strong. Now I'm 41. I'm talking about, 21, 22. They see their age getting killed. They see 9 minutes of a man with a smirk on his face looking like a demon choking a man, or just, Man, he's on this man's neck for 8 minutes and 47 seconds. Was that it? Dave Chappelle had a wonderful piece about that. Dr. Boyd, you brought that up, the Daniels wheel. Speak on what TJ finished off. Finish off what TJ was just talking about. Can you hear me?
Yes, okay. I can. Allow me to say this also in fairness. Everyone doesn't have to be a martyr, but they do need to find their place in the movement. And a lot of times, everybody doesn't need to be the face. Everybody doesn't need to be up front. Interesting thing about the civil rights movement was we knew King, but we didn't know the thousands that were at the march with him. And so we have to understand some people finance it, because if you're not strong enough, you don't need to be that face.
No, that's for sure.
And we have to make sure that we know our role in the movement. Because you got to look, when it was a civil rights movement, while they of age now, they were young then, and it was their people, their elders that were saying, "You're just gonna cause trouble for us. You're just gonna do this for us." So the movements have always come from the youthful generation. You know what the Bible say: young men for war, and older for what? Counsel. And so we have to find our niche and our place. Maybe everybody doesn't need to be the voice. Everybody doesn't need to be the face. Maybe you can finance it. Maybe you can strategize. Maybe you can hide them. Remember Harriet Tubman when she was freeing slaves? It was a lot of people that helped her. She was not the Underground Railroad, but she was the face of it. It took hundreds of people to make that movement take place. So we have to just educate churches and people and saying, hey, you might not want to be that because of the dangers that come along with that. But this is something you can do. You can support it this way. You can do something this way. Know what it is that you're called to, and you do your best to operate in that area.
Dr. Dandridge, you are older than I am, and then we're going to go straight to Reverend Miller, because I want y'all to speak on what these two younger gentlemen was talking about. How do we bridge the gap? How do we find a balance, is what TJ said. And I think that's so important because, man, these kids, go ahead.
The way we balance it is, as already stated, the challenge is to allow the young people to heed the wisdom of their elders. They have the strength, they have the vitality now, they have the vigor, they have the energy, and hopefully they have the health. So yes, they can war, but I'm reminded of Moses too, that was able to war. When you developed him in his 40-year time frame, he was still able to do some stuff. And there are some strong men that are older. Sometimes young bucks find out when they go up against them.
That was funny.
But what we understand is that they do have the strength, and some young people are getting wiser. Some young people are exercising wisdom. Wisdom is not, it's applying it at the right time. If timing and time don't coincide, even with everything, there's a season, as someone alluded to, Dr. Dabnab and Boyd and Miller and yourself, according to Ecclesiastes 3, there's a time and season for everything. And if time does not coincide with timing, it's the wrong time. And as Dr. Boyd said, and everybody's not called to be a martyr. It's good to be labeled with those that are martyrs, but you don't have to die. There's no greater death than a man lays his life down for a friend, but you don't have to die. You can live and not die.
That's so true.
You can.
Go ahead.
You can be the voice of reason in the midst of injustice, in the midst of oppression, in the midst of voter suppression, in the midst of changing times, in the midst of this postmodern era of COVID now, a year into it, and yet protests are still occurring throughout the country as a result of inequities, and not only inequities in terms of racism and in terms of white supremacy and terrorism and insurrections and, attempted coup d'etats and things of that nature, but we have to look at the whole spectrum, the economics, the education, all institutions of our society. We have to voice those inequities, that oppression. You have to call a spade a space when you see it. You have to know the code signals when they're talking. You have to be able to recognize it. You have to be able to deal with it. Don't let it slide. They have white privilege. Realize that. But that they understand, just like the woman today that was arrested in a bank because she failed to wear, a mask. Caucasian, 65. They arrested her.
Did they?
The bank called the police in Texas, where Governor Abbott lifted the mask mandate.
Mask mandate.
And in the midst of that mask mandate, if you're going to be disobedient, evidently it doesn't matter what the color of your skin is, but we're more prone to being arrested than Caucasians or others of a different persuasion. But
hey, listen, let me say this real quick. Y'all might not know this. As always, black men are more population. We 13% of the population in America, but black men are more. Black men are the largest percentage in prisons. Guess who the second is? Does anybody know? I didn't hear you. I didn't hear you. TJ, you unmute yourself.
And the black women?
No, it ain't anymore. Guess.
White women.
Huh?
You said guess white women?
White women.
Yeah.
White women are a startling. What was it? Look it up when you get a chance. And that was on the one poll I seen. And then I was doing something. I got to go back and look at that. Black men are number one, and white women are number two. So here's what I'm thinking: there's a black man, white woman thing, and then there's a white man, black woman. That's another thing that's pushed. I don't want to get into that too soon. I want to ask. Thank you, Dr. Dandridge, for jumping into the.
Let me
yes, sir. Go ahead.
Before we go on. Let me say this too. Change doesn't come from without, but it comes from within. We have to understand that Daniel was able to do what he was doing because he was a part of the system.
Right.
And you have to know, we have to have people in places and spaces with influence that can make those changes. We need politicians. We need police chiefs. We need people in these places to make those changes. And the problem is we're trying to make changes from outside, and we're not even inside to make any changes whatsoever. So if we're going to talk, we got to look where Daniel was situated. He was in the king's court. He was in the king's sphere of influence. And so it's hard for us. If we're going to create our own systems, we need to create our own systems. Like Marcus Garvey said, anybody who's not read up on him, please do. If not, if we're going to do as King model was to come a part of the system, we have to understand that you have to be a part of it. So
the Honorable Marcus Garvey, he had a good system going, but he ran into some. Did he have some inside stuff to kind of that made him fall to his demise? Because I've looked at the Marcus Garvey story. Very, I think he used to watch Hitler, and he was very, just wanted to speak well, and he didn't start out like that. And he had a great movement. And then a lot of Christians don't want to talk about it, but even the Nation of Islam, you got to think about it. Even at that time, see, I don't push nobody away, because first of all, I realize Christianity is not the oldest religion out there. There are some religions like Judaism that's older than Christianity, but at that time, and Reverend Miller, you can speak to this. Well, I don't know if you can speak to this or not. Is there a difference in between Jim Crow racism and new Jim Crow or today's racism. Do you remember the 50? Well, I'm not trying to say. Do you remember? My mom was born in 50. Do you remember the 60s compared to now? What's and as far as the church, what's the difference? How come we haven't cracked the back of America yet and force them? If we Dr. Boyd, you just said oh, what did you just say? I just had it off the tip of my what can we, I mean, why hasn't this system cracked yet? I mean, this has been, if you think about it, we've been in slavery longer than we've been out of slavery. 270-year-old white 270-year-old people, period. Think about it, 100 and a little over 140, 50 years is slavery. So we haven't been out that long. Is that why the system is it going to take 400 more years to get to where we are on the same level as everybody else, economically and police wise? And then I want to jump over into the COVID situation. I want everybody to say two things about that. I got two questions, and then I'll let you go. I don't want to hold you all night, but we still got the attention of a few people. So is in your day, which is now, and then in the past day, is there a difference in the approach? I mean, are people more scared now or don't do anything now? Because I'm telling you, I don't see hardly any people who need to be saying something, saying anything. If it's just showing up, if it's given, Lord knows I don't see it in the giving. So is there a difference? Because when I was growing up, I can remember we had people come over our houses. Hey, can we borrow some sugar? Mom said, sure. You know, they bring a little cup up there. Mama gives some sugar. You got 2 eggs? Yeah. Can we use the phone? Man, listen, if somebody asked you to use your cell phone, you'd be looking at them crazy. You said it earlier, but why did we lose that community? And is it because God blessed us? Because we got to get the church. There's never been a change led by anything that was worth anything unless it was the church. How do we get back on track? How do you think, let me ask you this. Do you think that we could bind together like they did at the Montgomery bus boycott, where they marched for over a year without getting on the bus and spending the money? You think we can do that, black people today?
Can you hear me?
I can.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
You know, y'all been kind of going in and out, so I'm gonna try to pick up what little bit I can try to what you were saying.
Did you hear me?
First of all,
mm-hmm.
You know, we're called to be in this world, but not a part of this world.
Right.
We forget that this is not our home. So a lot of times, I think we might have the same mentality that Israel had to wait for God to come back and free them from the rule of Egypt and put them on top. Of course, we know we don't live in that type of time now. And I think we did more praying. You know, it's time to move, but have we asked God, is it time to move? Most of the time we do things off of what we should be. And it sounds good and it might be good. I mean, you know, I can remember when David told Nathan, God, hey, I'm gonna build him a sanctuary. Well, that sounds good, David, do it. But he didn't go to God and ask. And when he went to God, that's not the way I'm running this plan. That's not how I'm running it. I'm running it this way. So I think we need to get our marching from the Bible. And I know we can't sit around and pray all day. I know they're going to bring that. But we need some leadership from God. When God says move, we can move all we want to, and we're not going to get anything. I say this all the time. If we were on top, we wouldn't be no better if we're not being led by God. You could be a poor bigot as well as a rich bigot. A bigot is a bigot. Now, why do we want to get on top? You want to get on top so you can treat everybody. You just want to be on top yourself. This thing has to deal from where God wants. Then told us, this ain't our home, but while we're here, we want to spread the gospel, give the gospel.
Mm-hmm.
We want people's souls to go to heaven. I know we got to live down here, and he told you, but don't worry about what you're going to eat. Don't worry about where, because he said that he would take care of us. But in our minds, he's not taking care of us like we want him to. He even said over there in Matthew, look, you say you want to follow me? Bear's got a nest, fox has got a hole, but the Son of Man ain't got nowhere to lay his head. Count the cost. When you want to follow me, count the cost. Because what? You have to deny yourself. Pick up your cross and follow me. And when we follow him, just look at the trail he went. Now, I know people going to say it's different, but he didn't own nothing. He didn't want nothing. He bought a tomb. He bought
That would have told me something right there.
Because
Absolutely.
he knew in his father's house, that we got a much better thing coming. Paul said it no matter what happens to you on this side, it does not compare to what God has in store. That's what keeps us marching on. That's what should keep us preaching the truth of Almighty God.
Amen.
Because when Paul said, when it's all over, then there's a crown laid up for me. But we want our crown. We want it right here. We want our cake and eat it. We want it like right now. We're going to leave this earth as it is. If he made everything right here, ain't none of us want to go to heaven. We're going to all want to stay right here.
Yeah. TJ.
And so I feel like we missed the mark. Now, when I was back in the 60s and back in the 50s where I was, my parents, they told me, go to school and learn everything that man teach you. Because he must be right, because he's running the world. Well, of course, a lot of us got miseducated. We dropped the values of the church and picked up the values of what the world taught us. All of a sudden, what for us don't work no more. Don't get me wrong. Seminary is good. But everything they teach us in there is not the right thing.
Yeah,
so back in the day, we were close together. Back in the day, we was closer together. We poor, and we didn't know we was poor. You can come to my house and eat. I'll come out. Hey, you had some food. Everybody got something to eat.
Yeah.
But as soon as the enemy separated us, now I make more money than you. I got better than you. Hey, I look better than you. And so we done separated. And what the Bible says, a divided house will do what? A divided will fall. Our church is divided. Every time we make a new committee, we divide. We divide, and we're not being that one body. And then we wonder why things working.
Right.
Because we're not working it out the way God told us to work it out.
Absolutely. TJ, go ahead, man.
Yeah, I want to touch on Brother Miller's point where he was speaking to about how we are not, or there's a lack of taking marching orders from God. Is that correct? He did. Did you say that? I don't want to put words in his mouth.
Reverend, he said he wanted to touch on the point. He's froze up there. Can you hear me, Reverend Miller?
Huh?
Okay. He was asking a question that he wanted to touch on the point that you said that we ought to take our marching orders from God. He said, did you say that? Because he didn't want to put words in your mouth. Is that
okay,
what you
I'm
said?
trying to get you on my big computer here, because this phone it keeps breaking up on me.
Yeah, you done froze up. I can hear you good. And did you hear what I said about TJ? Go ahead and ask the question again. It was your...
So before I touch on this point, I want to make sure that you did say this. You did say that there is a lack of followers and believers who are not getting their marching orders from God. Is that correct? I think he froze again.
You done froze up again. I'm pretty
okay. Now go ahead.
Okay.
Did you say that that there is a problem that we are not getting our marching orders from God. Did you say that? Am I correct in that?
I
don't know.
believe it.
But you know what? I'm not quoting, but paraphrasing. I think he did say that, and I think he went on to say we do it on our own instead of waiting on getting. Okay, go ahead, TJ.
So,
but you know what?
Pastor Miller,
I'm paraphrasing. I think he did, and I think he went on to say we do it on our own. Hey, you're gonna have to turn down your Facebook. Okay, go ahead, TJ.
Okay.
No, I just said that was a record. I don't think he can hear.
Okay, so
okay.
So with that, what he said.
Okay, good. I just said that was a record. I don't think he can hear.
Okay,
I just muted him. Go ahead.
For the sake of time, and like I say, he can rebuttal, you know, if when his time comes. I think that I believe I will agree with half of that, but then another half of me I would kind of disagree and maybe respectfully push back on that, because I believe that there are some Davids that are being assassinated by Sauls.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean is that I do believe that there are men and women who are being called by God for this specific time. But again, because there's a lot of ego in this thing, and because power is so, in the Black community, power is so limited, and there's only so much power. Mm-hmm. And I always hear the saying that power is never given away. It's sort of seized or taken by force.
It is.
And I think because we believe that power is so limited in the Black community, I think that we spend more time arguing and fighting with each other on the things that we don't agree on. When 70% of the stuff we agree on, I once heard a marriage counselor say that when people are married and they get a divorce, they agree on 70% of the things. But it's that 30%.
Right.
It's that 30% where there's no give and take. So I think what's going on in the church, and I think the conversation was about the role that the Black church has in this biblical justice and social justice movement. I think the problem is that we need to find a way to agree on that 70% that we agree on, and let that be the crux of our fights. Because again, I believe that my brothers in the Nation of Islam, I believe that they truly do love Black people, and I truly believe that they are fighting against systems of oppression. I believe that my Black Hebrew Israelites brothers are fighting against the system of oppression. I believe, and I go on all night doing that, but for the sake of time, I believe that we agree on a lot of this stuff.
Right.
We just got to find somewhere where we can say, you know what, for me right now, the problem is that our prisons are overflooded right now with Black men.
Mm-hmm.
And how can we as a community use our voice to speak out against this evil system of mass incarceration? Mm-hmm. And the problem is we got too many prophets that are taking over the role of the prophet. Mm-hmm. In other words, God and take over how we fight, how we speak out against evil.
Man, I like that, man. Hey, you got a good point. But let me say this, and let me ask you this rather, and then we're gonna go to Dr. Boyd and then Dr. Dandridge. Then I got one more question. They still hanging on with us. But that 30%, man, is probably some of the hardest stuff that we don't want to let go. It's tied into our beliefs. It's tied into the way we was raised. It's tied into the fact that Hebrew Israelites think that they're Israelites and never did. Well, some of them I talked to never did come from Africa, but they, I mean, listen, everybody came from Africa, but I mean, man, listen, I'm not going to argue, but you want to try to find a common ground, but sometimes that 1% can be the one that's just so dear to our heart. I've heard people say in church, I don't give a damn what the Bible says, and when it's tied to a tradition and what people hold in their heart, they're not going to budge it. That will stop. But let me tell you about white people. White people, there was not even anything known as white. White people, and a lot of people don't know this, a lot of, England, Ireland, wherever these light people were, they came up and made the color white. And they had differences before. And this is what gets me. They had differences. They didn't get along in some instances. But when it came to conquer these black people over here, they came together. We can't come together over on whether we're going to have turnip greens or chitlins, and that's sad but you can't start right there with us, man. We've been beat, when you take a black man and put him in front of his wife and his children, and you take a horse, 2 horses, and pull him apart, and that white man is saying, hey, listen, you see your man now, there's nothing he can do for you. And then you put us together and have us fighting each other. Man, that stuff runs down through generation. And that's why they say, well, we didn't slave. I wasn't, my granddaddy didn't own no slaves. Well, if he didn't, he's still, he's privileged. He's getting a bonus off of the backs of our ancestors, so we don't get that type of privilege. So I agree with both of y'all. I agree wholeheartedly with that. Here's what I want to ask though, Reverend Miller, if he can still hear us, on that point when he says we are doing something, we're going on our own, and it's because of egos. I'm with TJ. But what about those already mandated stuff that's in the Bible, but that we already know? I think sometimes somebody will say, well, let me pray about it. Well, you don't have to pray for that because the Bible already says that this is what you need to go do, feed the hungry. It's like, well, let me pray. Doggone well that that's God's will. So I don't believe we need to pray in that instance. But when it comes to something like that man said, you know what? I think I'm going to tear down these barns right here. It ain't nothing wrong with them, but I'm going to tear down these barns. I'm going to build some new ones, and then I'm going to fill them all up, and then I'm going to sit back and eat and be merry. Nothing about, if he's sitting down and eating and being merry, he's not building no barn. He didn't say anything about the people who helped him. He's just going to plan his own thing. But look out now. This scares me every time I think about it. God said tonight, not tomorrow.
Your soul.
Your soul is required. And man, that in that instance, I don't think we can do it. But I think there's something we need to go ahead and move on. Dr. Boyd.
Yes.
Did you hear us? Go ahead.
I did. To that point, I would like to say, we have to get some continuity, and we also have to get
break that word down for us who don't understand. What does that mean? Continuity.
Continuity is some. Let me say it like this: we need to have the common ground and a single voice.
I got a crowd that didn't get the books. They got the they had old books, so they don't know those words. That's all I'm saying. Go ahead.
We need to find a common voice, a single voice, and have that to speak. The problem is the method that was introduced, and it's literally still working today, of divide and conquer. Put the short against the tall. Put the skinny against the fat, the light against the dark.
Black male against the black woman.
Yeah, the divide and conquer method is still working, and so it chops down our voice. And then you have the few of us that we have
going 100 different ways. Instead of us coming together in continuity and getting something done. We might have 100 things on the list, but we need to find these 10 that we have to have done and push to make sure they are done, so we can be where it is we need to be as a community.
Yeah, and we can't save the whole world. So where do we start? What do we do? TJ, you said it earlier. If we can't listen. What can we do to make a difference? Where do we start?
So I'm in my first year of my doctoral program.
Yes, sir.
And one of the things that my mentor, which is pretty much my professors, they said that each doctoral student has to find one problem, and you have to write a dissertation, and you have to come up with a ministry plan for that one problem.
Dr. Hardy told us that.
Dr. Boyd, he did his dissertation on missions, right? I'm doing my dissertation on mass incarceration, and I'm saying that the Black church does have a voice.
That's awesome.
They have a response to mass incarceration. So what I'm saying is that you have to, your church, your community, they have to find their problem that's affecting their community and do whatever they can to fight that problem, whatever it is. It might be one church over here, they might be good feeding the homeless. Another church over here, they might got a hell of a choir and they sing their butts off. So why don't that church with the good choir put on a concert for the homeless? The church that work at the home, why don't they come together? So we just got to find what our niches are, man. I mean, just like with schools, you got some schools that are performing arts schools. That's what they good at. So we just got to find our voice. You got to find your individual voice and learn to partner with other people. Be able to partner with other people.
Right.
And I think that we can begin to combat some of these evils that have inflicted our communities. But everybody got to find their voice. Kind of like Dr. Boyd said earlier, everybody can't be Daniel. But somebody can be Meshach, somebody can be Abednego, somebody can be that no-nameless person. All they did was pack the lunches for the homeless.
And that helps. That's part of it. Man, Dr. Dandridge, but TJ, you are so right. But I think the main thing while we're doing that, doing whatever we're supposed to be doing, we got to talk to the young people and teach these young people who are in our churches, because that's where it starts. You can't tell me that those, you see these riots. These are not all these racist people. These are not old white. I mean, they are old, but they're not out there, tearing up stuff. These are young people. So we got to start at our church. Let's switch over a little bit. Dr. Dandridge, the COVID-19. You mentioned it. We've been through a year of it. They got the vaccine out. Some people are breaking their neck to go get it. Others are not doing it. What say you about it? This is an unprofessional, non-professional. We're not medical doctors. I'm not anyway. Now, y'all, if y'all have that, that's fine. What was your dissertation on, Dr. Dandridge?
Intercultural studies.
Intercultural. All right, that's all right. What your thoughts where we are now? We've seen it kill a whole lot of people. Some of us are still here. Some of us haven't caught it. Where are we at, and how important do you think it is to take the vaccine or not? I need everybody to answer this. We'll start with Dr. Dandridge.
Well, my opinion of the COVID-19 vaccination as a military serviceman and as a Army senior officer and a combatant, my opinion is, as a result of service and other endeavors, I've always been vaccinated. And I'm vaccinated now with both doses of the Moderna vaccine. Where we have to remember that this vaccine, the coronavirus, is a mutagenic pathogen. And this thing has 6 variants right now, even as it's devastating the globe. And as a result of over 500,000 that are killed and have died. And these are not statistics. These are people. These are our families. And I believe in the inoculation and the immunization and the vaccination of people, pre-existing or not, even as it's been federalized by the President of this United States and the Biden administration, as opposed to the former administration. Regardless of the fears, we've vaccinated ourselves against diphtheria, polio, malaria, measles, mumps, chicken pox, pneumonia, flu, and we find ourselves doing it on an annual basis.
Right.
And we're talking about reaching a herd immunity. And even on today, the former president, Donald John Trump, number 45, has urged his supporters to get vaccinated. So that's primarily, we can't say it is solely a Caucasian mix, because it's a group of people. You'd be surprised of his supporter and supporting
no
base.
doubt. No
So,
doubt.
you know, even us has supported him because we believe in conservatism, you know. And so our black brothers and sisters that supported him is now being urged to get their shots as well. At first, you heard the reports that they're going to pose issues to the Biden administration and not get vaccinated. Other people, because they hear the reports of side effects and things of that nature. And personally, I didn't experience any side effect, be it a sore arm, any soreness, any sinus related effects. I didn't experience any symptoms. It was a shot. I took it, kept moving on.
But TJ, are we supposed to ignore? I mean, now listen to my. I'm not saying I don't have a position on the. I got a position, but I'm not disagreeing with Dr. Dandridge. I'm not disagreeing, but can we overlook what happened? We talk about the Jim Crow. Can we overlook what happened in Alabama with the syphilis experience when they told black people, in fact, that they was going to get free health care?
I don't think we overlook it, but I think we have to put it in context. One thing I did, man, I took a lot of my direction from Dr. James E.K. Hildreth, who is the CEO of Meharry Medical College.
Okay.
From the beginning of coronavirus, he was saying stuff about it before Fauci was. He moved before Fauci in the CDC. And he gave me comfort long before those guys did. So
well, he must be a black man then.
Yeah, African, brilliant brother.
Yeah,
I just think we have to put the Tuskegee experiments into perspective. And like my brother Dr. Dandridge said, he gave you examples. Like when I was a little boy, before I can go into kindergarten, I had to take about 6 or 7 shots.
Yeah, we did. Me too.
I took those shots. I'm a military guy, and I'm in the process of going back in as a chaplain. And I was gonna have to take the shots anyway, so I took my shot actually today. So man, it's just all about. It goes back to you gotta educate yourself.
Well, you're right.
Each his own. But for me, I'm around my mother. I'm around my mother and other people. So if there's something that I could take, they can give me a better chance, then I'm going to take. I got an uncle right now. When he had the coronavirus, man, it messed him up. Like he's still trying to learn how to speak well right now.
Wow.
And that's my uncle, you know. Like I say, he had cut out some of his school and everything. So again, to each his own, but educate yourself. Don't be ignorant and saying, well, this happened in 311 BCE, so we ain't gonna do this today. You just gotta learn to put things in context. Sometimes I think we get stuck in our ways.
Yeah, we do. Ain't no doubt. I agree with that.
We know.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. But speaking of ignorance, would it be ignorant not to talk about that there have been several people who've died right after taking a shot? There's a rumor. I don't know how true it is. Marvelous Marvin Hagler, the bad man in the middleweight division, Thomas Hearns had said that he was, before he died, that he was, trying to fight the effects of the
Can you
of
hear
the
me?
vaccine. What do we tell those people? What do we tell people who worry about that? Because if it's not an experience, and it's safe for most people, what happens to that person who goes and it just don't work out for them, it don't match their body. I mean,
Nothing.
people are scared of that.
Yeah, nothing is 100%, man. There's always factors.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's DNA. There's always factors. You know, what may kill you may not kill me. You can probably eat chicken for 70 years and don't have nothing. But the minute I start eating
Hey,
fried
I know you're right about that.
I get type 2 diabetes in 2021. So, you know, again, that's why I say educate to each his own. And, you know, it just, you know, if you smoking, you taking your chance smoking a cigarette. That's
right.
You know, and you might not never get cancer, but you got children in the house who might get cancer for secondhand smoke. So
there's no evidence that supports that secondhand smoke.
Yeah,
but
I'm just saying, you know.
Yeah, I feel you.
Yeah,
I feel you, because man, I'm gonna be honest with you. At first, I'm like, I'm not taking no vaccine. I did pull from then, and then I started seeing people dying. I was on social media. A nurse, she was begging people not to take it. She done froze up on one side, and I was I'm used to pretty strong drugs. In my day, I done pretty strong drugs, so my mind says, well, it probably won't mess with me. But educate yourself. I tell you what, without any education at all, when I heard about that Pfizer, that's the one I was gonna, if I was gonna do it, I said, because they put out one good product I know for sure. Dr. Boyd,
I'm here.
your stance on the where we're at with the COVID-19 now and the vaccine. You took yours yet?
I have, and I told everyone that they make that decision for themselves and for their families. If they would like to take it, I have assisted in it, and they have not wanted to take it. I have not attacked them for not
Right,
wanting
that's right.
it.
Yeah.
It's a choice. As of today, it's a choice, and they choose whether to or not to, and they got to live with the results either way. Just as those who have taken the vaccination have to live with the results either way. We can't um, negate healthcare America and Black America historically. We also have to be conscious of where we are today. This isn't a targeted vaccination where they're targeting certain communities, but it's open to whosoever will let them come.
Okay,
So
this is the last thing I want to ask you, because we got to get ready to go. It wasn't targeted. It's not a targeted vaccination.
mhm.
How do Black people always get whatever the new thing is? We get it. HIV and AIDS, Black women, um, cancer, Black, COVID-19, Black. Shoot them in the tail, Black. How does that happen? And I think even if it's not targeted, if Black people are the most people getting it, all three of y'all have already said you've got it. I think isn't that some kind of target? You got the Pfizer, you got the Johnson & Johnson, and then what was the other one? What's the
Moderna.
difference? What's the difference in them? And TJ got a good point about being educated, but I mean, if Black people are the most people getting it, it's like HIV and AIDS. It started out as a white male, a white homosexual male disease, and then it spread it to Black women. How does that happen? I
Let
mean,
me say this:
uh-huh.
any white person's concern becomes the African American burden. And that's just because lack of resources. Uh, Look at everything that's required to limit COVID-19 spreading, and we can't do it. We can't social distance within our homes. Many of us don't live in homes that allow for social distancing to take place. Many of us work essential jobs because they are jobs that we consider "quote unquote" bottom of the barrel. We don't have funds to social distance and stay. Some people, our homes are so dangerous that we're safer out in the world possibly contracting the virus than we'll be in a home that's not adequate enough for us to have it. They talked about look at virtual schooling, and the majority of our homes not even equipped with Wi-Fi to do virtual school. So
Oh man.
you got
Oh,
to look
that breaks my heart.
historically the burdens that we have, and that's why we are suffering from anything. So anything that concerns them, we're going to automatically become a burden to us. We've been having healthcare issues, and this is a healthcare issue. So you have to look at it historically on why everything impacts us and magnifies on us more than any other community because of systematic racist systems that have been put in place for over 400 years. And it's going to always rear its ugly head whenever
Yeah,
it's a
it is.
concern. It'll be our burden.
Yeah, man. Listen, fellas, thank y'all so much. When y'all gonna open back up, Dr. Boyd? I mean, full blast. Where
Uh,
you gathering?
uh, that date has not been set. We've been prayerful about it because it is a safety concern. And God isn't limited to four walls of a building now more
That's
than
right.
ever before.
We
So,
just gotta assemble ourselves. Yes, we
yeah.
just don't need to forsake the assembly ourselves. TJ, when y'all church open?
So, cause I got a couple of things in the fire, and I'm
Yeah, you
working with, and even partnering up with Pastor Boyd. So we one church that I am working with in fellowship with, they already open. They opened up back in maybe August, and it's not a lot of people. It's very few numbers. So
right.
they're doing it as safe can be in these times. So that's really cool. So
Cool. Dandridge, when Quinn, the mighty Quinn, opening back up?
The Quinn is in the process of opening back up, where we have a full professional cleaning, which we have set aside. But I'm in my sanctuary where I am now.
All right.
And have been in my sanctuary since COVID, which is a year ago. And
Yeah,
I'm in
me
it
too.
every Sunday and every Tuesday, even holding Bible study this evening via social media digital platforms of Facebook and Zoom, as well as direct conference line.
Okay.
We'll operate with a hybrid module and model, and we'll also be in person to proclaim the mission of the church and do a missional work and keep a communal relationship with the community, and to try to strive to eliminate those disparities within our race and our people, and also to raise the standards and help with people, giving them a hand up and not a hand out in terms of people being helpless, hopeless, and homeless, and in our communities concerning the COVID and concerning all of the systematic racism and injustices that are going on right now in where we live, to help those who are disenfranchised and marginalized because of those disparities that exist in our community. But I advocate that we do whatever we can do to protect ourselves. We have the wisdom of God and his providence to provide for us and preserve us accordingly. And we just must continue to persevere, for we walk by faith and not by sight. Greater is he that is in us than he that is in this world. And if God be for us, who can be against us? And he will do exceedingly and abundantly above all that we're able to ask, think, or imagine, according to the power that worketh in us. So we as a people need to stand up, be the voice of the voiceless once again. And we as the people must allow the Lord to order our steps. That means to stand up. And if you're the righteous and the Daniel, you must stand up and do what you can do. We're all not eyes, we're all not ears, we're not all mouths. And the last time I checked, faith is not a noun, but faith is a verb. You've got to act. And faith without works is dead, and works without faith is dead.
I thought I was getting ready to hear you. Hey, y'all have got to hear Dr. Dandridge preach, man. I know he's older than I am, but he takes off, and I'm gonna tell you something. He don't quit until it's over. I mean, the whole time, and he preaches hard, man. I don't see how he do it. I got to pace myself, so I'm looking forward to getting back into it, so I can hear y'all, all of y'all preach. I guess y'all want to know when I'm gonna open back up?
Yeah.
I think that if it's the Lord's will, Resurrection Sunday. That's what I'm thinking right now. Subject to be changed, but that's what I'm thinking because, man, people don't come out. They scared, and I don't blame them. I thank God I haven't caught the COVID. Y'all pray for me on that vaccine because, I'm sorry. The government just ain't never really done anything, in my opinion, to help further the cause of equality for black folks. They have done a hell of a job oppressing and devastating and killing the black community. So, but I'm not saying nothing about the vaccine. I'm just saying welfare was all messed up. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac concocted. Listen, it's been terrible. So I'm like Thomas. I got to do some investigation, like you said, TJ. Listen, man, why don't y'all come back in the next month or so, if you can? It's good to see y'all. I'll be in touch with you though, man. I can't let you get. TJ, when was the last time we talked, man? Was it that day we rode the Sonic together or something?
Yeah, your last year ABC. Yep.
Yeah, man, that's crazy. I've been pastoring 6 years because Great Hope called me like a couple of months after I graduated. Me and Dr. Boyd talk all the time, man. And me and Dandridge, we got a nice relationship. He let me preach, man, before he even heard me and introduced me with confidence. He must have heard me somewhere, but he said he is educated. And he made me feel like somebody. He's well read. He's educated and capable. I said, I heard that. You remember that, Dr. Dandridge, when I preached my uncle's funeral at your church? That was a blessing. I preached quite a bit since then because you let me come before I was even you've been here a while. Before I was pastoring, man, he would let me come when he was out of town. So I've always appreciate you, Doc. Dr. Boyd, I love you forever, man. TJ, I'm gonna be in touch. I love all y'all. Thank y'all, man, for hanging in there with me, and I'll be in contact with y'all. Y'all holler at me. Don't forget about me now.
God bless y'all.
All right, man. Peace.
Wish you the best on your chaplaincy.
Thank you.
Amen. The military chaplaincy.